Good morning. Happy Shochu'sday, everyone. Chris and Steven here with you, reporting live from Japan. Drinking coffee in various iterations is how we normally roll at 10 a.m. in the morning. Wherever you are around the world, what are you drinking? And I assume that's just an iced coffee. Am I right?
That's right.
That you got in
Just
your
iced
hands.
coffee.
First iced
Yeah.
coffee of this young day. I'll
Actually,
put
the
it in the.
second.
Oh, what is everyone? I'm going to put this comment in there right now. What is everyone drinking? That should go out to both sides. And it's episode number 58, which is doesn't correspond to any uniform numbers that I can remember on the Swallows. Any famous athletes with number 58? Who am I missing?
58. There's probably a linebacker somewhere that wore
Yeah,
that
that
number,
would
but I
be.
can't think of anybody. The um, the only
Oh,
58 I can think about is the encrypted 3 rum is 58% alcohol.
58%
From
alcohol, an
yeah,
auspicious number, an auspicious
yeah,
level of alcohol.
yeah, yeah. I got
58
to
was
ask you about your. Yeah, go
Brian
ahead.
Urlacher. He was a linebacker for the
Yeah,
Bears. Was he 58?
he might have been. That might
I'm
be
gonna
a good
Google that right
blast
now.
from the past.
Brian Brian Urlacher, number 54. Damn it,
Oh.
way off. Okay,
Him plus
anyway,
Brett Favre is 58.
what?
And they
Uh,
met a lot.
they did, they did
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah. I got,
Maya
yeah.
starts us off with a nice comment. Thank you. She says, "Nice T-shirt." This
Yeah.
is
Can you tell us about that?
this is my design called. I guess you could say Shochu's elemental. So, just using the table of the elements: sulfur, holmium, carbon, hydrogen, and what's that? Uranium. I promise you, there's no uranium in Shochu ever,
Yeah,
ever,
fortunately,
ever,
the
ever.
sulfur doesn't really show either.
No, that's
That's a
true.
good thing.
Or holmium, I think, is probably out of the cards. The other ones are available in various forms, but uh, this T-shirt is now available on Maction Planet for anybody who wants to get their own in a variety of sizes, and I think even in a couple of different color patterns. But
Are those, is that available internationally?
yes, they do ship internationally. Yeah. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Cool.
Well, welcome everybody, and
Yeah.
good
People
morning.
had
And
talked about
you're a little
size.
bit. You sound like Gargamel right now. I wonder if anybody else is hearing the distortion.
That's odd.
Yeah, I don't know, or maybe it's only in my headphones, but we got a little bit of something going on. Well, maybe
Yeah.
somebody in the comments can chime in about whether or not it's just me. But banners. Let me see. Next banner is booze news. What's going on in the world? And I think recently
Someone's,
something that came up was the whole thing with Daiyame and the 40% version and how they're starting to export more, especially to Europe, I believe. And Hamada Distillery making a financial push into marketing sweet potato shochu as, I suppose, as a cocktail component primarily in certain European markets. Um,
is my audio any better now?
it is now. Yep, that's much
Okay.
better.
Switch to my headphone mic. For some reason, my Blue Yeti was failing me.
It's
Interesting.
weird. Some days are better than others for this tech.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
Dayame 40%, I think, with the nice sleek, kind of straight-sided bottle, shouldered bottle
Hmm.
that I believe won an award somewhere. I can't recall. There's so many award shows now. Where did they win an award? Was it Tokyo or was it San Francisco?
Yeah. I don't know.
They had won something somewhere, and now they are available internationally, or they will be shortly. And we had just seen it was Maya says it's IWSC, so it was neither of the options that I had mentioned. But it's good to see that Oh, and the ISC. And it's good to see that they're putting money behind this, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So they joined the ranks of Ichiko, I think is the other major player that is investing. In what ways has Ichiko, I think Ichiko has really set the standard here. How is Ichiko leading the charge in terms of putting their financial power behind their products?
Sure. I mean, they were the first company to go to basically have a foreign office, right? They actually have a U.S. based team in San Francisco, and that's a huge step forward for a shochu maker. That had never happened before, and Mr. Miyazaki, who's based there, is a great guy. Really working hard to spread Ichiko, visiting in times when he can, visiting bars around the States, trade shows, really getting out there. And, and he's such a happy-go-lucky guy. Like he's just always got a smile on his face and just loves the brand, truly loves the brand. He's the best kind of company man through and through.
Yeah.
And he just he really is a gem, and he's and I think they now have a second full-time person. For a while it was him running the show, and then they had essentially like part-time temp workers who would join trade shows and help pour and that sort of thing. But I think maybe not temp, but at least maybe not full-time. Maybe they were full-time. I don't know. But now they've got a couple of full-time employees, and just getting out there, getting the word out about shochu, and doing, I think, some pretty clever advertising that is much more in line with how Western alcohol makers advertise in the States, as far as swag and events and promotions and giveaways and all that sort of thing. So very, very much needed, I think, to get shochu out there. And Ichigo's a great brand to do it because they've got such great packaging and such an easy drinking barley shochu. So I think Ichigo's they were really on the forefront, and we'll see what Hamada does now with Dayame. How big a push is this? Is this opening up a Hamada USA office and beginning to try to really spread the word of sweet potato shochu?
Yeah, because they're going to have to do it themselves at this point. There's not going to be a distributor out there, at least not in the States, who will give Dayame the attention that it needs. I mean, we're talking about a sweet potato shochu, something that most people in the States have never even dreamed of. And how is that going to capture people's imagination? That takes boots on the ground. You need a sales staff to be pushing that every day. It takes walking into accounts, setting up appointments every day of the week, sometimes cold calling on people, and just being relentless. And you can't depend on a distributor of the scale that Hamada would have designs on, because that's a huge company in Kagoshima. They're just not going to find that relationship. They're going to have to build that on their own. So it's going to be significant.
They're the largest supplier in Kagoshima at this point.
Currently, they are. They are the largest producer in Kagoshima. As you know, it used to be Satsuma, and Satsuma is no longer in the top 10 in terms of volume produced. I think they might have tumbled out of the top 10. They're close. I need to go back and look at that spreadsheet again. But yeah, it's good to see places like Hamada. Now, the elephant in the room, who I don't think I've seen any announcements for them, is when is Kirishima really going to get into it? Now, there's a reticence on the part of sweet potato shochu makers. There's the common belief being that the foreign market isn't mature enough to really be able to embrace sweet potato shochu, and that obviously, as we have seen, is a miscalculation. People are, everybody says, especially Americans are not ready for sweet potato. Well, we've seen the exact opposite, and I don't know what influence the pandemic has had, but for whatever reason, people are incredibly open to sweet potato shochu at the moment. And I would say, if you're sitting it out on the sidelines and waiting for things to fall into place, then you're never going to be in the right place at the right time. And I would say the time is now. So if we could get a few of these big guys pushing in similar directions with their financial power,
Sure.
marketing and events and, like you say, handouts and just hitting the pavement, that would move the clock forward by several years.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think I've already started to see some influence from Ichigo, where they're pretty well known at this point, at least in the industry, and
Yeah.
then among the trade, and then it's appearing more places, which is what needs to happen. And you're right though. It's right now you have Ichigo with the field of themselves promoting 100% barley shochu, and to many American consumers that may be what shochu is right now. They may not be aware that there's sweet potato, rice, soba,
Kokuto, yeah,
Kokuto,
they probably
right?
aren't.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine, if you just thinking about the big boys, right? You've got Kirishima, obviously. They were already in the market, but they've got soju in large letters on the front
Yeah,
of their
they say
bottles,
soju on the label. Yeah.
which is not helpful. But Unkai, they could be driving the narrative around soba shochu
Yeah,
in
and
the
people,
States. And
everybody that I've tasted on a buckwheat shochu has really enjoyed it. I mean, it's not it doesn't really make anybody go like, oh no, not yet. Everybody's like, oh, that's really nice. It's grainy and nutty, and I like that aroma. So yeah, I think there's a ton of potential, particularly right now, as we've seen that everything's reopening, as everybody is aware of, at least in the States. Sorry, let me reframe that. Not everywhere, but at least in the States, things are reopening, and everything's evolving. Everybody's refreshing. Everybody's trying to do it better than it was at the end of 2019. Menus are being rewritten. Wine cellars have been decimated and are being rebuilt. There's a whole, it's spring, and there's a renewal posture in place, and I think it's a great time to take advantage of that. Shochu should be leaping into the fray, and it's good to see
really should be.
Hamada. Hats off to Hamada that has decided now is a good time.
Yeah, and this is it's a 40% expression, which is extremely uncommon in sweet potato, but it's one of these new fruity styles we talked about that really aren't available overseas, and suddenly you've got this very large player that's put one in the market. So you've got this sort of lychee and tropical fruit flavored sweet potato shochu, not flavored in the sense of additives, of course, because it's honkaku shochu, but it has that expression, which the sweet potato shochu that exists in the States right now doesn't. So that'll be really interested to see how fans of sweet potato shochu already respond to that when they try it for the first time.
In terms of 40% ABV sweet potato shochu that you remember being available in the U.S. market, what else is up there? I mean, 40% for a sweet potato is higher than most genshu by a couple of points in Japan. Is there anything else at genshu level in the States?
So there's
kuradashi, maybe?
Kuradashi, and they clock in at about 37, 38, I think.
Probably.
It's not quite
that's
40.
The Satsuma
But then,
product, right?
and then hyakunen no kodoku. No, I'm sorry.
That's barley, but yeah.
No, I was thinking of the other long-named barrel age is Tenshi no Yuwaku. Sorry.
Tenshi no Yuwaku. Okay.
Yes, that's 40% from Nishi, and that's aged in I believe sherry casks.
So there is a precedent. There's a couple of higher proof sweet potato shochus available, but this is going to be, it's a very, very different expression. So if you can get your hands on it, I recommend cracking a bottle open of Dayame, because it is super fruity. And I've never tried the 40, to be fair. I've tried the 25, their standard 25% a ton of times. And it is very floral. So it's going to surprise people who have any experience with sweet potato shochu. You're going to be like, wow, that came from a sweet potato fermentation, huh? And they worked for a number of years to get the temperatures right to get the sweet potatoes prepared properly and make sure that they can come out consistently with that flavor profile. So it's an interesting expression, and I think it could actually be quite fun for a bartender. All right, well, I guess that was a good, long, detailed 14-minute long booze news. That's a new record for us. And to shift gears into the main topic of today, and it's the title, it's all about Japanese gin. The reason for this, or the timing anyway, is that next week's Japan Distilled podcast episode is about Japanese gin, so we're going to prime the pump a little bit. And I just went bottle shopping over here to my left, and I pulled out a couple of things that we didn't actually talk about. I don't know. I don't remember if we talked about we did talk about this one.
We talked about yuzu gin.
Yep. And then I also found that I have a bottle of the Hombo Expression. This is from several years ago, of the wabi gin.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see that on my.
Maybe I should take it out of the box. But
that's from the folks who make Mars whiskey.
That's right. That is right. And it's a very nice. It's a very elegant bottle with the sharp shoulders and these. It's nice. Still hasn't been cracked. This is an old bottle, one of the original iterations, or one of their first versions of wabi gin when it came out. This 45%, maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago I got this.
Okay.
But a couple of fun ones. And one thing that we talk about on the podcast, and you'll have to listen to it to get a lot of the nitty gritty, is there tends to be some citrus.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very much an understatement.
Yeah, and that's
what you got.
Actually, it's funny because there are a lot of the citrus ones, but I've got a couple here in front of me. Actually, I got more than a couple. This is Sakurao.
Sakurao. Okay.
Yeah, which is it's 47%, so it packs a punch. And in a gin and tonic or gin and soda, it's going to sneak up on you. You don't really taste the heat, so this can be a little bit dangerous. Speaking from experience. And then this is just, I think, probably my favorite in the market right now, Osuzu from Osuzuyama Kuroki Honten folks. This is the original, and I just love it. It says juniper, sansho, local citrus, ginger, sakaki, umami, etc.
Umami is it?
So it's bases is shochu. So with the koji, you get the umami, and I guess they're just letting you know that shines through. Or maybe just got a little bit of MSG in it. Who knows? But that's probably my favorite gin at the moment among what I can get in Japan. And this does have citrus in it, but the citrus is really balanced. And I think what happens with a lot of Japanese gins is they become big citrus fruit bombs, and that can be fine. It's really summer refreshing, but it's also once you've had it, you've had it. It's fine, but it's not really what I crave when it comes to gin. I tend to like London Dry as a style, and that tends to be much more juniper forward. Very, something like Beefeater is an excellent gin, even though it's available everywhere. And so I tend to like that more reserved style, and that's what Osuzu is. That's what Sakurao is. And then the other thing that happened actually, and I had forgotten I had this, but I found it in my closet the other day. This is Kaguya gin. Okay. So this was essentially a collaboration between Kaguya, the beer brand, and which I believe is made by Far East, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
And Kitaya here in Fukuoka, and Kaguya had a lot of beer that they couldn't sell at the beginning of the pandemic because everything had shut down, so they shipped it to Kitaya and they made a gin. Gotcha. And I don't know if this is going to stay on the market or not, but it's a good use of alcohol that would be going to waste.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely a good use.
So, unfortunately, I don't think they know a whole lot about making gin.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's say who's making these things. Now with the exception of perhaps Sakurao, I don't know a whole lot about that distillery, but obviously the places that are equipped to make spirits, there's a whole bunch of them down in Kyushu, and it happens to be a lot of awamori makers in Okinawa, and then shochu makers in the 7 prefectures of Kyushu that have been right at the forefront of this whole Japanese gin development. It's very nascent. It's less than a decade old, really, at least in terms of anybody making gin in earnest. Perhaps one of the early movers and shakers was Kyoya, which is a shochu distillery down in Nichinan, Miyazaki. And it kind of started from there, and it was often shochu makers and awamori makers that were using a honkaku, or a single distilled spirit, as a base. And when I was talking to Watanabe-san about this product many years ago, and I wrote about it in one of the editions of Jipangu Shochu magazine, he was saying, it might be helpful for us to take something that people know gin and use that as a vehicle to teach them about something that they don't know, shochu. So it was a honkaku shochu base, sweet potato shochu base that had a variety of botanicals macerated in it, and then they blended all of those macerations together and distilled them. Very, very interesting and quite good. Also a little spendy. And today, if you travel around Okinawa and Kyushu, you could probably find how many Japanese gins are there these days? There's dozens now. It really has taken off, and it's not just distilleries. There's also, this is one that I talk about in the podcast episode. I'm not going to let all of the cats out of the bag. You'll have to listen to hear the whole story. But this is a fascinating story out of Nagasaki. It's the Dennoshin 1812, and we talk about this story and how it's a little bit. It has a great historical hook, and it's got a fascinating flavor profile. I believe that this is it might actually primarily be a sake brewery more than a shochu distillery, and 40% ABV. This is a tiny bottle, 510 mils. I don't know. I've never seen that volume before.
Oh, that's an odd volume for sure.
But it's a really interesting expression. You can see the color on it. So talk about it on the podcast. But there's a ton of people who are really getting into this space, and Macedonia must be selling juniper like it's going out of style, because a lot of places in Japan are having to source it internationally, obviously.
Sure. And it's and of course gin is what you make when you're getting started as a distillery, because you can make it quickly and start to recoup some of your investment. But the Sakura was actually made by also a sake brewery and distillery, and they in Hiroshima, and they actually are the Togochi whiskey brand.
Oh, that's them. I did not know that.
Them. And apparently they're releasing their first single malt in July. So they will be making authentic Japanese whiskey soon, which is
that's going to be
good
pretty
news.
young,
Another,
I imagine?
Yeah, must be. I'm guessing 3 years.
3 years.
But they use, but it's funny because even though Sakura is pretty nice, balanced dry gin, they use like 5 different kinds of citrus.
That's one of the good things. Other than the Macedonian juniper, there's a lot of focus on local in these Japanese gins, and that's kind of cool.
Sure. Yeah, they're using, let's see, the Hiroshima Navel, Sweet Summer
Navel
Orange.
Okay.
Yeah, Yuzu, Dai, which is a bitter orange. So I guess it's 4 different citrus. Then they've got Hinoki, so Japanese cypress, green tea, red shiso, and ginger.
Ginger's in there too.
Addition, in addition to the juniper. So now they actually they have another brand, which is their 17 Botanical Limited Edition. This includes Sakura, but then they actually have Japanese juniper berries from Hiroshima.
Okay, which is I've heard that. I didn't know that they were doing that, but we have heard of another distillery that seems to have been able to find Japanese produced juniper, which I was not aware was a thing. But if you're looking to get into agriculture, that's a crop that you could probably sell you could pre-sell the entire field of juniper right now, given how many different firms are trying to get into this space.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Lots and lots of Japanese gins available, and more coming to market, and it's really going to be interesting to see how it falls out. It really is in the early days, right? Some of these are lovely, and some of them are fine, and some of them should probably stick to sake and shochu making.
Now the good news being is they know how to make a good fermentation. They're starting from solid ground, but then it's what you do with it afterwards, and the blending of the botanicals is the key point.
Sure. Yeah, but early days, I'm sure the good ones will figure it out, and if there's not demand for a product, it'll just quietly disappear.
Yeah,
probably
go the way of the dodo.
So now I wanted to talk about this was kind of front of mind, because one of the interesting things about Japanese gin is the use of Japanese botanicals, right? And that does make it unique and gives a sense of terroir. Although I would argue strongly against gin having terroir, but the the uh, the Japanese botanicals certainly give it a different expression from gins made elsewhere. And something that you actually turned me onto this, and this is from France.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And this is not the gin. This is actually an eau de vie. This one's made with nori, seaweed. And so, but their gin from the same company I believe it's called like Oceana or something like that. It's basically an ocean gin, which has several kinds of seaweed in it, in addition to juniper. And obviously the seaweed is going to give you umami.
Yeah.
Right. It's a really interesting drink. Not for everybody, as evidenced by the different people I tried these seaweed eau de vie on. I think I was the only fan.
They weren't high on it.
Yeah, other people, like, we used to have it in the shop, and I'd occasionally taste people on it, and everybody's like, no, I'll stick with what I'm drinking. I don't think I ever sold a glass of it. I mean, these are 50, but tiny little bottles.
The ABV on them?
These are actually 250 mLs. They're 45% alcohol.
45.
And I ended up taking them home when we closed the shop because nobody wanted them. And
I remember when we tasted through that whole set of them together, we were like, this is really interesting, but not for everyone.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by them. I think you will find places that could do something really cool with them, probably in a cocktail, possibly in a cocktail. But obviously I'm not a bartender, or not. I can pour drinks, I just can't craft very clever ones.
Yeah, I actually, as I said, I took them home, and they're these stackable.
The stackable ones, yeah, those are fun.
Right, and I just finished the nori. Then there's awamori or blue nori, blue seaweed, and then this is another. I can't read French, but a third seaweed expression. So these are all stacked up, and then the gin as well. I finished the gin long ago, and then I had these left over. But it's kind of fun because you're almost tasting like one of the components of their gin, separated out.
That's essentially what it is. Yeah. And they're actually kind of good. I think they're probably some of the people watching this stream right now would enjoy them, just because they're a little bit left of center. Right. I'm not sure which side of center. They're just not. They're not exactly what you expect. They're quite interesting.
Sure.
And they probably
Sakura uses.
What do they use? They use seaweed?
Okay. No, they don't. That's what I was going to comment, though. I don't understand why Japanese gin makers aren't using seaweed, since it's such a big part of Japanese cuisine. But
it's a
Sakura
approved
in their
shochu
special
ingredient too.
It is. Sakura in their limited expression actually uses oysters, which is a nod to Hiroshima local aquaculture.
Yeah, you said that, and I think it was such a kind of curveball for me that I didn't remember it. But I remember reacting like, a what?
I'm not sure if it's the oysters or the shells, but it's kind of oyster stout, right?
Fair enough.
Not the first time somebody's made booze with oysters. But I'm curious why seaweed's not more of a component. At least maybe that's where the umami comes from in osuzu.
That's a very good call out. That is surprising, and I think if this is something that we talk about in the podcast, which will drop on Monday of next week, everybody. One of the issues with some of these early iterations of Japanese gin is that they're too citrusy, and it's at the detriment or at the expense of the juniper. And in some parts of the world, if juniper is not the first note that you notice when you open that bottle, it can't be sold as a gin, or not easily. There will be limitations in terms of the permits that you can get when they do the formula analysis, and when you send the bottles in for lab testing. They're gonna not use a human nose. They're gonna run that liquid through a machine nose, and if the machine doesn't pick up the notes in the required parts per million that has been prescribed by tax law, then you won't get a permit to sell that as a gin in certain municipalities in the States, for instance. So they're gonna have to dial back the orange on these things, and dial up the old school ginness of the gin.
Yeah, and there's there's something to be said for a solid London dry style gin. It's just
And that's my preferred style too. Yeah.
Yeah, really refreshing. What I guess one of the sort of gin related topic is the sort of uniquely Japanese creation. And I'm surprised. I don't know if they only branded it best or if it actually was developed in Japan. Is the gin sonic,
Okay.
as opposed to the gin and tonic, which is it's a mix of tonic and seltzer, right? And it's super refreshing, and it lowers the calories because you've cut the tonic water in half, right? Which has added sugar, so and super refreshing with a lemon or lime wedge in there, and it's just a really great summer drink. So highly recommend the gin sonic as a summer refresher.
You were talking about on the podcast about how tonic water in Japan is different from tonic water elsewhere. Can you rehash? Can you go back through that again?
That's right. So tonic was actually originally developed as a medicinal for English sailors, and so it has quinine in it, and because it has quinine in it, it actually helps prevent malaria. So tonic was something that the English Navy would actually stock on their boats, so it didn't take long for them to start mixing it in with gin to make gin and tonics. And then you add in the lemon wedge or the lime, and you've got your citrus, and that protects scurvy. So it became and then gin originated as a medicinal drink in Holland, right? So you have all of these sort of medicinal components that went into the gin and tonic actually being both helpful to protect the English troops and obviously a nice drink in its own right. But because of the quinine, tonic water was not approved in Japan for sale through through the usual channels. You can't buy medicine kit. At least when they were first sourcing tonic, I don't know if it's still true. You can't sell quinine over the counter in Japan, essentially.
Interesting.
So as a result, tonic water in Japan does not have quinine. So we're not protected from malaria when we drink our gin and tonic in Japan.
That was like my entire reason for drinking gin and tonic. That's interesting. So are they able to, do you feel, and I'm not a tonic expert, and I don't really expect that you are either, but do you feel like the tonic tastes similar here? Is it when I have a gin and tonic in Japan, and I love a good gin and tonic, it doesn't strike me as tasting fundamentally different. So they're able to mimic the influence of the quinine. Does quinine have a taste?
Good question.
Anybody listening to this know anything about tonic? If you do, let us know.
It's just, I think the time that I've had a gin and tonic in the States to the time I had a gin and tonic in Japan was such a long period in between that I couldn't tell you if they tasted the same or different. And also the gin would be different.
Sometimes it's just that lime that's in there that's going to make a lot of the difference anyway, or cover up any deficiencies.
True. And again, I always tend toward drier drinks. So for me, I actually prefer just gin and soda, skip the tonic altogether.
Gotcha. John Go just added his 2 yen, which is that quinine is bitter, hence the added sugar in tonic water. Yeah, that makes sense.
So probably does make a difference, right? The quinine with that bitter note. Sure. We'll have to do a taste test. Maybe I'll take some Japanese tonic back to the States with me next time I visit and do a head-to-head. Bring a little Schweppes home with me.
Yeah, Schweppes sells some. I think Schweppes is the easiest to find around here, and then I think Wilkinson also maybe has a tonic.
Yeah, I think Schweppes is what I normally see. Suntory does make a tonic water.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about
seen that as well.
Those little cans.
Yep.
True. Yeah, it's not a big tonic market in Japan. So
no, it's not really. Even when they drink it, they cut it in half. The gin Sonic.
Yeah, it's the Sonic. There you go. Okay, there it is. That's how the Sonic was born. Is they just didn't have enough tonic around and they needed to ration it.
Yeah.
So they
could have. Yeah. All right, the whole party came into a bar, and all he had was one little can of.
They had one can.
Tonic.
They had to cut it.
And of
So
course,
let's. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's sort of a very Japanese thing to do is one person decides what they want to drink and then everybody follows because nobody wants
Everybody
to make
said,
a
"Yeah, I'll
decision.
take one of those too."
Right.
Right.
So one guy's like, I'll have a gin and tonic. And then the whole table goes, that sounds good. And then next thing you
And
know,
all of a sudden you've
he's out of
sold 8
tonic
of them.
water.
And
Exactly.
welcome the birth of the Gin Sonic.
Yeah.
I think that's as plausible as any other explanation that we've come up with. Newly opened. If we can move on. So sorry, just to
Absolutely.
wrap that up. Next podcast. What podcast number is it? It's number 16?
16. Yeah, is
On
gin.
Monday.
17 will be Kastori Shochu.
That's right.
And we apologize in advance for any audio issues. That one was just, it took us forever to get it recorded, and then the audio apparently wasn't great. And
it was a pain in the ass.
I think hopefully Rich has been able to make it listenable, but that was a rough one. Just all around, we just had the hardest time getting through that episode. But not all of them can be smooth sailing, I guess. It makes us appreciate when they go well.
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a information packed episode. We're talking 2 ahead from now. They're both information packed. The Kastori Shochu one will also be a good listen. The gin one,
Sure.
that was much easier to record.
Yep, it was. Yeah, newly opened. Good question. Where did I put the bottle? I put it away. That's what happened. This is my newly opened. Is
Kohi.
Kohi. This is a sweet potato shochu from Kagoshima, black koji fermentation. It's actually made by Unkai. Unkai acquired a Kagoshima sweet potato shochu distillery.
That's the one. Right.
Third largest shochu maker after Kirishima and Sanwa Shirui, who makes Ichiko. And number 3 is Unkai, also in Miyazaki, it's between Kirishima and Unkai being the number 1 and number 3 largest producers, that Miyazaki actually has the highest volume of shochu sold per year, even though they've got, half as many distilleries as Kagoshima?
Less than that, yeah. A
Less
little
than
bit less
half,
than that.
right?
But yeah, you're right. It's close to half.
Yeah, so this is you actually pass this distillery on the Shinkansen as you enter Kagoshima, right? It's basically up north, and
it's right at the north side of Kagoshima.
Yeah, I sail by and it's like, I should get off at this next station and visit, but I never do.
And probably it's not a distillery that you hear a whole lot from. They probably don't just let people in much of the time. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem like it's despite its proximity to a what we would probably call a local Shinkansen stop. It didn't seem like it had a customer facing facade or anything. It was mostly just a loading dock. So
but this is a nice nice black koji expression, pretty traditional style. I just happened to be in a bottle shop and sent Christopher pictures of a few labels and said, which one of these should I try? And he suggested this one, so I picked it up. I'm trying to support it's a little family-run liquor store. It's near my favorite coffee roaster in Fukuoka, Tomono Coffee. So and it's funny, it's actually called kohi, which you would say coffee, kohi. So
easy to remember.
Yeah, it is. But how about you, Christopher? What was your news?
Man, I just choked on my sparkling water. I'm hurting right now. I actually just cracked Mugi Hokka. This is actually technically last week because I wanted to bring it secretly to a baseball game where they were very, very much anti-alcohol. But I was like, forget that. If I'm going to go and watch this terrible team play, I am going to drink something. So I brought a small vessel of Mugi Hokka. Mugi Hokka is a all barley shochu. It includes roasted barley in the secondary fermentation, so it's got a ridiculous cocoa notes and really, really good. We brought in a bottle of a thing of Wilkinson soda as well, and we're just mixing highballs during the game. Of course, we lost. We got our asses kicked, actually, but it was made a little bit better by Mugi Hoka made by Tensei Distillery in Kagoshima Prefecture.
Yeah, relatively, you don't associate barley shochu with Kagoshima, and certainly not roasted barley shochu.
No.
I tend to think of like Kintaro, which is made here in Fukuoka by Nishi Yoshida. And then, of course, Aokage in Miyazaki from Yanagita has that roasted note, even though it's not roasted barley.
It's not roasted, but yeah, it tastes like it.
He just hacks his still a little bit. But yeah, the Mugi Hoka is great. I love that one, actually. That's become my summer beer alternative, is I put that in a coffee soda with a shot of Mugi Hoka in it, like if I don't want beer. To sort of my, there's that Otsukade beer, which is basically like your beer at the end of the day, right? The end of the workday, and you just want that first drink is just always so refreshing after a hard day's work. And I've gone to the Mugi Hoka soda kohi wari.
That sounds
as
really
my
good.
alternative. The chocolate and the it's almost a coffee note, right? It's a dark chocolate and coffee note in the Mugi Hoka, but it just completely sweetens the otherwise black coffee with soda. The alcohol gives it sweetness. So it's a really, really nice drink. That's sort of my summer sipper for when I don't want a beer.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Oh.
You just got to accept that you're getting a little bit more caffeine at 6 in the evening rather than.
Yeah. Okay. When you put it that way, that's normally past my cutoff line for coffee, but I might make an exception.
When I know that I've got like evening meetings, which happens quite a bit recently,
Sure.
And I don't mind having the caffeine to help keep me alert for those evening meetings. So, but no, I wouldn't normally drink coffee that late if it was a night off. But it's a nice drink. Probably be a good brunch drink.
There you go.
Right?
There you go. Yeah, it could take the place of a Bloody Mary potentially.
So many fewer calories.
What's that?
So many fewer calories than a Bloody
sure.
Mary.
Absolutely.
Right. Really, than most brunch drinks.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you got no calories in the coffee, no calories in the soda, no calories in the ice, and then you got a 25% spirit. So
it doesn't have any additives. So that's
yeah.
7 calories per milliliter of alcohol, basically. That's all you're getting in terms of the calorie load in the shochu. Yeah, that's good. We need a name for that, though. I think
I know
kohi sodawari is not particularly catchy. What do we got? We need a name for that cocktail.
Yeah, it's not using tonic water. I'd call it a conic. Yeah, what is?
Well, coffee soda could be a coda.
Coda. That's not bad. That was a Zeppelin album. It was late Zeppelin.
Well, I haven't been drinking this. We normally do these brainstorms at night after a couple of drinks, which is when I'm a little bit more creative. I can't come up with anything funny or clever right now, so.
Sure, I don't mind coda. It's not
coda.
Not a horrible name.
A coda.
Yeah, coffee soda. I like it. Let's go with that for now. That's a working title.
That's the working title? Okay, we'll go with that for the time being. All right, well, everybody out there, if you are into trying a little bit of shochu with your coffee, then Mugi Hoka might be a good option for you. And a little bit of soda equals a coda. And please, wherever you procure your favorite podcast, make sure to listen to the gin episode. We'll reference it lightly next week, but we're going to focus on something different, which is why we're talking about the topic ahead of time, which is not how we normally do these things. But maybe it's a good idea to advertise ahead of time as well.
Sure.
Yep.
Definitely.
So, everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us again today. And we will be back again next Wednesday morning Japan time, Tuesday evening for much of the rest of the world. And we hope that you have a very happy and healthy and enjoyable Shochu'sday, wherever you happen to be. Thanks a lot. And from both of us here in Japan, Kanpai.
Kanpai.